On a Friday night that was supposed to be entertaining, lighthearted, even fun, the Duke of Sussex walked onto that famous set and proceeded to turn every question into a confrontation, every joke into an insult, and every attempt at conversation into evidence of some imagined persecution. Within 25 minutes, Jonathan Ross, the man who once got suspended for going too far, would be the one calling for restraint. Within 30, he would do something unprecedented, tell a guest on live television that the interview simply could not continue. And within 35, Prince Harry would rip off his microphone and storm into television history as the royal who couldn't handle a chat show. The footage would go viral within hours. The fallout would last far longer. This is what really happened when a prince forgot that wit beats titles every single time. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. We bring you the most explosive celebrity moments every week, and trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next. The familiar theme music of the Jonathan Ross show filled the ITV studio as the audience settled into their seats. Friday night, prime time, the promise of entertainment crackling through the air like static before a storm. Jonathan Ross bounded onto the stage with his characteristic energy, the slightly theatrical wave, the knowing grin, the immediate rapport with an audience who'd been watching him for decades. He was wearing one of his signature flamboyant suits, this one a deep purple that somehow worked despite every rule of fashion suggesting otherwise. Good evening, and welcome to the show," Jonathan announced, settling into his hosting chair. "We have got a fantastic lineup for you tonight. Musicians, comedians, and—" He paused for effect. "Actual royalty. Well, sort of. Former royalty? Part-time royalty? I'm honestly not sure what the correct term is anymore, but he's definitely got a title and an opinion, and tonight, both are joining us on the sofa." The audience laughed, appreciating the gentle irreverence that had always been Jonathan's trademark. "Please welcome Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex." The applause was warm as Harry emerged from the wings. His smile was tight, controlled, the expression of someone who'd already decided this would be an ordeal. He settled onto the sofa, nodding briefly at Jonathan, but not offering any of the warm greetings that most guests provided. No handshake, no "great to be here," just a seated prince waiting to be entertained. Jonathan, ever the professional, pressed on. "Harry, thank you for coming. I have to say, I was genuinely surprised when we got the booking. You've been pretty selective about UK media appearances." "I'm selective about everything," Harry replied, his tone flat. "I have to be. When you've been burned as many times as I have, you learn to be careful." The implication was clear. Even being here was a risk, a favor bestowed upon Jonathan's show rather than a mutual exchange. Jonathan's eyebrows rose slightly, but his smile remained in place. "Well, we're honored you've taken the risk. Now, let's start with something easy. How's life in California? Are you finally adjusted to the sunshine and the smoothies?" It was a softball question, designed to ease into conversation. Harry's response suggested he'd heard something else entirely. "I don't really think about California in those terms. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's a necessity. We moved there because we had to, not because we wanted avocado toast and yoga." Jonathan laughed, trying to keep things light. "Fair enough, though I hear the avocado toast is quite good. I wouldn't know. I don't have time for that. I'm too busy trying to rebuild a life that was systematically destroyed." The statement landed heavily. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Jonathan's smile flickered but held. "Right. Well, that's certainly a more serious answer than I was expecting for a question about weather and smoothies." "I don't do small talk very well anymore," Harry said, and there was something almost accusatory in his tone, as if Jonathan's attempt at lightness was itself offensive. "I've learned that small talk is how people avoid real conversations." "I see. So you want to go deep straight away? Skip the warm-up?" "I'd prefer honesty to performance, yes." Jonathan paused, recalibrating. In 3 decades of hosting, he'd learned to read guests quickly, the nervous ones who needed coaxing, the drunk ones who needed managing, the difficult ones who needed charm. Harry was something else, someone who'd arrived with grievances fully loaded and seemed determined to fire them regardless of the questions asked. "All right then, let's be honest. You've had a complicated few years. The move, the interviews, the book, the documentary. A lot of people in Britain feel like they've seen a lot of you, maybe more than they expected. How do you respond to that? Harry's expression hardened. I'd say those people should ask themselves why they're so interested in my life in the first place. I never asked for attention. I never wanted any of this. But you have sought attention, haven't you? The Netflix deal, the Oprah interview, the memoir. Those weren't forced on you. They were necessities, defensive moves. If I don't control my own narrative, other people will control it for me. Control is an interesting word. Some might say that wanting to control how people perceive you is, well, a bit controlling. Harry stared at Jonathan, his gaze cooling several degrees. Are you trying to be clever? I'm trying to have a conversation. That's generally what happens on chat shows. It feels more like an interrogation. Jonathan laughed, but there was an edge to it now. Harry, I've asked you 2 questions, one about California and one about public perception. If that feels like an interrogation, I'm not sure what a real interrogation would feel like. It's not the questions, it's the framing, the implications. You're already positioning me as someone who's seeking attention when I've just explained that I'm trying to survive. Survive is a strong word for someone living in a Montecito mansion. The audience drew a collective breath. It was the kind of observation Jonathan was famous for, pointed but delivered with enough humor to take the edge off. Most guests would have laughed, acknowledged the absurdity, moved on. Harry did not laugh. So now we're going to play the privilege game, Harry said, his voice rising slightly. Dismiss everything I've experienced because I have money. That's very original, Jonathan. Very insightful. I'm not dismissing anything. I'm pointing out that survive might be a dramatic choice of words for someone in your circumstances. And what would you know about my circumstances? You sit here every week making jokes about celebrities, collecting your paycheck, going home to your comfortable life. What do you know about being hunted? About having your mother killed by the same press that now pays your salary? The mention of Diana sent a visible shockwave through the studio. The audience went completely silent. Jonathan's expression shifted, still professional, but now with something harder underneath. Harry, I'm not the press that killed your mother. I'm a chat show host who invited you here for a friendly conversation. If you can't tell the difference, I'm not sure I can help you. Maybe I can't tell the difference anymore. Maybe that's what constant persecution does to a person. Or maybe you've decided that everyone is persecuting you because it's easier than accepting that some criticism might be valid. Harry leaned forward, his body language becoming aggressive. What criticism would be valid exactly? The criticism of me for wanting privacy, for protecting my wife, for leaving an institution that was toxic to my mental health? Those are all choices people might have opinions about. Having an opinion isn't persecution. It is when those opinions are weaponized, when they're published in newspapers and repeated on shows like this until they become accepted fact. Jonathan held up his hands. I haven't weaponized anything. I've asked you a few gentle questions, and you've responded as if I'm attacking you. At some point, you have to consider the possibility that the problem isn't everyone else. Harry laughed, a short, bitter sound. There it is, the classic British response. Maybe you're the problem, Harry. Maybe you're being too sensitive. Maybe you should just shut up and be grateful. I've heard it my entire life, and I'm done accepting it. No one's asking you to shut up. You're on my show, speaking to millions of people, the opposite of shutting up. But you don't want me to actually say anything, do you? You want me to smile, tell a few amusing anecdotes, maybe gently mock myself so everyone feels comfortable. You don't want honesty. I'd love honesty. What I'm getting is hostility dressed up as honesty. There's a difference. The exchange was becoming heated enough that the floor manager exchanged worried glances with the director. This wasn't the playful banter the show was known for. This was something else, something that felt dangerously close to genuine conflict. Jonathan, sensing the need to redirect, tried a different approach. Okay, let's try something else. Tell me about your charitable work. I know you've been involved with various mental health initiatives. That's important stuff. Harry's expression suggested he found the pivot transparent and insulting. You want to talk about my work now, after spending the first 5 minutes attacking my character? I haven't attacked your character. I've asked questions. That's literally what interviews are. Questions with implications, with built-in assumptions about who I am and what I want. What assumptions have I made? That I'm seeking attention, that I'm playing the victim, that my suffering isn't real because I'm wealthy. I haven't said any of those things. You've implied all of them. Jonathan exhaled slowly, his patience visibly thinning. Harry, I cannot control how you interpret what I say. I can only tell you that my intentions were to have a friendly, engaging conversation. If you've decided in advance that I'm the enemy, then nothing I say will change that. I haven't decided anything. I'm responding to what's actually happening. What's actually happening is that I'm trying to interview you, and you're making it impossible. Every question I ask gets turned into evidence of some vast conspiracy against you. It's exhausting. Imagine how exhausting it is to live it. I'm sure it is. But you're not the only person who's ever faced difficulty, Harry. You're not the only one who's dealt with press intrusion, or family problems, or public scrutiny. Other people manage to discuss their experiences without treating every interviewer like a hostile witness. Harry stood up slightly, then sat back down, a false start that betrayed his agitation. Don't compare my situation to anyone else's. You don't know what I've been through. You're right. I don't know everything you've been through, but I know what I've observed in the last 10 minutes, which is someone who can't handle even the gentlest questioning without lashing out. That's not strength, Harry. That's fragility. The word fragility landed like a slap. Harry's face flushed, his hands clenching on the arm of the sofa. I'm not fragile. I'm angry. There's a difference. Is there? Because right now, it looks like you're angry at me for doing my job. A job that involves asking questions that you're apparently not prepared to answer. I'm prepared to answer genuine questions, not loaded ones. How's life in California is loaded? Tell me about your charitable work is loaded. Harry, I'm not sure what would qualify as unloaded in your world. Questions that don't assume I'm guilty of something. Questions that don't frame everything I do as suspicious or self-serving. I haven't done either of those things. I've literally just asked you what life is like and what you're working on. You're the one who's added layers of interpretation that aren't there. The audience was completely silent now, watching the exchange with the rapt attention of people witnessing something they'd never expected to see. Jonathan Ross, genial, irreverent, always in control, was being pushed to his limits by a guest who seemed determined to take offense at everything. Jonathan took a breath, visibly composing himself. Let me try one more time. Megan, how is she? How are the kids? The public is genuinely curious about your family, Harry. Not in a hostile way, just because they've followed your story. Harry's expression shifted to something colder. I'm not here to talk about my wife. Okay, that's fine. What are you here to talk about? I'm here to... Harry paused, seemingly caught off guard by the directness of the question. I'm here to discuss issues that matter. Mental health, veteran support, the treatment of people in the public eye. Great. Let's discuss mental health. You've been very open about your own struggles. What's the most important thing you've learned about dealing with mental health challenges? It was a sincere question, the kind that most guests would embrace. Harry eyed Jonathan suspiciously. Why do you want to know? Because I think it's important. Because millions of people watching might benefit from your insights. Because this is a chat show, and I'm chatting with you. It feels like you're trying to get me to say something you can use against me. Jonathan stared at him for a moment, genuine disbelief crossing his features. Harry, I've just asked you for mental health advice. How could that possibly be used against you? Everything gets used against me. Every word I say gets twisted, taken out of context, turned into a headline. I've learned to be careful. Being careful is one thing. Being paranoid is another. Don't call me paranoid. I'm describing behavior, not diagnosing you. You're treating every question, no matter how innocent, as a potential trap. That's not normal, Harry. That's not how healthy people engage with the world. Maybe I'm not healthy. Maybe constant harassment has affected my ability to trust people. Did you consider that? I did, and I'm sympathetic to it. But at some point, you have to ask yourself whether you're protecting yourself or just isolating yourself. Because right now, sitting here, you've managed to turn a friendly chat show appearance into a confrontation. And I haven't done anything to deserve that. Harry shook his head, a harsh laugh escaping him. Friendly, right. Just like all the other friendly media that spent decades tearing my family apart. I'm not the media. I'm one person trying to have one conversation with you, and you won't let me. I'm here, aren't I? I'm answering questions. You're deflecting questions. There's a difference. Every time I ask something specific, You respond with a general grievance about how badly you've been treated. It's not conversation. It's filibustering. Harry's face darkened. Is that what you think I'm doing? Filibustering? I think you came in here with a script, a list of complaints you wanted to air, and you're shoehorning them into every response regardless of what I actually ask. It's not engaging, it's performing. I'm not performing, I'm being honest about my experience. Your experience is valid. Your inability to hear anything except your own narrative is the problem. Harry pointed at Jonathan, his hand shaking slightly. Don't tell me what my problem is. You don't know me. You're right, I don't know you, but I know what I've seen tonight. And what I've seen is someone who's deeply unhappy and determined to blame everyone else for it. I blame the people who are responsible. Is that so unreasonable? It's unreasonable when the people who are responsible expands to include everyone who asks you a question you don't like. I'm not responsible for what the tabloids did to your mother. I'm not responsible for whatever happened inside the palace. I'm just a man with a talk show who thought it might be interesting to chat with you. Interesting? Harry repeated, seizing on the word. That's what it comes down to, isn't it? Entertainment. My life is entertainment to you. Your life is a topic of public interest. That's different from entertainment, and you've actively cultivated that interest with your documentaries and your book. You can't spend years telling your story and then get angry when people want to discuss it. I can get angry at how it's discussed. I can push back against bad faith interpretations. Where has my interpretation been bad faith? Point to something specific I've said that was unfair. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, at Jonathan's expectant expression, and seemed to realize he couldn't actually answer the question. It's not one thing, he finally said. It's the cumulative effect, the tone, the insinuations. I've literally asked you about California, your work, and your family. Where are the insinuations? They're there. You just don't see them because you're so used to how this works. Or maybe they're not there, and you're so used to being persecuted that you see persecution everywhere. Harry stood up abruptly. The sudden movement caused a ripple of alarm through the studio. Jonathan looked up at him calmly. Leaving? I'm considering it. That would be a shame. We've got 20 minutes left, and I haven't even gotten to the interesting questions yet. If these were the easy questions, I'd hate to see the hard ones. These were gentle questions, Harry. Softballs. The fact that you couldn't handle them without getting defensive tells me something important. And what's that? Jonathan paused, choosing his words carefully. It tells me that you've spent so long surrounded by people who agree with you that you've forgotten how to have a real conversation. It tells me that your definition of fair means unchallenged. And it tells me that, despite all your talk about honesty and authenticity, you're actually terrified of both. The audience gasped softly. It was the most direct statement Jonathan had made all night, the kind of observation that cut through performance to something real. Harry stared at him, his expression cycling through shock, anger, and something that looked almost like hurt. You don't know anything about me, Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know what you've shown me, and what you've shown me is someone who can't handle a chat show without treating it like a battlefield. If this is how you engage with someone who actually wanted to like you, I can only imagine what you're like with people you perceive as enemies. You were never going to like me. You'd already decided what this interview would be before I sat down. That's completely untrue. I was looking forward to meeting you. I thought you might be interesting, charming, funny. I'd heard you could be all those things. Instead, I got... He gestured at Harry, still standing awkwardly by the sofa. This? Someone determined to be the victim no matter what actually happens. Someone who can't tell the difference between a question and an attack. Someone who's so wrapped up in their own narrative that they can't see how they're coming across. Harry's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. I don't need your assessment of my character. You came on my show. That invites assessment. That's the deal. The deal was supposed to be a conversation. This is a conversation, just not the one you wanted. You wanted me to nod along while you talked about how mistreated you've been. When I asked actual questions, gentle ones I might add, you fell apart. I didn't fall apart. You're standing up in the middle of an interview because you can't handle basic questioning. That's falling apart, Harry. Harry grabbed his microphone cable, then stopped. His jaw worked silently as he wrestled with what to do next. The audience watched in frozen silence, aware they were witnessing something that would be discussed for days. Jonathan sighed, the fight seeming to drain out of him. "Look," he said, his voice softer now, "I don't want this. I didn't invite you here to argue. I genuinely thought we might have a good conversation, share some laughs, maybe get into some deeper stuff if it felt right. But you've made that impossible. You've treated me like an enemy from the moment you sat down, and I don't know how to fix that. Maybe I'm tired of being interviewed by people who pretend to be friendly and then twist everything I say. I haven't twisted anything. The cameras have been rolling. Everything I've said is on record. Point to one thing I've twisted." Again, Harry couldn't answer specifically. Jonathan continued. "Here's the truth, Harry. I think you've been through some genuinely difficult things. I think the tabloid treatment of your mother was horrific. I think growing up in the public eye is brutal in ways most people can't imagine. I have sympathy for all of that. But sympathy doesn't mean I have to accept being treated poorly. And that's what you've done tonight. You've treated me poorly. You've treated my audience poorly. You've turned what should have been entertaining television into something uncomfortable and hostile. I'm not the one who made it hostile. You absolutely are. I've asked nothing but reasonable questions. You've responded with suspicion, accusations, and grievances. If anyone's made this hostile, it's you." Harry seemed to deflate slightly, some of the rigid anger leaving his posture, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "I think we have different definitions of reasonable. I think we have different definitions of reality." The observation was devastating precisely because it was delivered so calmly. Harry stared at Jonathan for a long moment. "I'm done," Harry finally said. "This was a mistake. It didn't have to be. You chose to make it one. I chose to stand up for myself. You chose to see attacks where there were none. There's a difference." Harry yanked off his microphone, the sound crackling through the studio monitors. "Goodbye, Jonathan. Enjoy your ratings." "Goodbye, Harry. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I suspect it won't be in another interview." Harry walked off the set without looking back. His footsteps echoed through the studio as he disappeared into the wings, leaving behind an audience that sat in stunned silence and a host who seemed, for once, genuinely at a loss for words. Jonathan turned to face the camera. His usual easy smile was gone, replaced by something more weary, more honest. "Well," he said slowly, "that was unexpected. I'm not entirely sure what just happened, but I think everyone watching can draw their own conclusions." He paused. "We're going to take a break. When we come back, I promise things will be considerably less tense. We've got a lovely comedian waiting in the wings who, I'm almost certain, won't accuse me of persecution. Almost certain." Scattered laughter broke the tension, and the show cut to commercial. What do you think? Was Jonathan too harsh, or was Harry completely out of line? Who would you side with? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to help it reach more people. Subscribe to our channel for more explosive celebrity moments.